Okay guys, let's get busy here today. I'll show you what this is going to become. This is the version of the Benett that we'll be using in the high school program. So this is a production version of the Benett from Chris at Right Wing. So this will come in the kit. This is the wing. This is provided by Flite Test. It's made out of Flite Test Foam, extremely lightweight. We're going to be using the these motors. These are really nice motors. These are the Sunny Sky 2204. I think these ones are 2300 kV motors. We'll spin them with, these will fly just fine on like a 545, 53, 63. Here I've got a tri-motor 5.3 prop on here, or tri-prop, and this flies just beautifully. This is a 26 millimeter motor mount off the website, and then the 26 millimeter puck. And this is what we're going to use in this build today. This is normally, we use the 30 amp ESC, we're going to use this. And then this is the Spectrum AR410 receiver that we mostly use. We'll use this in the student projects, but where I'm going to go with this airplane today is the full out UAV build. So this is one of the new Spectrum. This is the, what is this one? This is the new Spectrum antennaless receiver. We're going to be using this. And this is going to be tied in with the Maytech. I've got it apart here. I'll put it together for you to see what it looks like together. Okay, this is the Maytech F405 WMN flight controller. We're going to be setting this up on ArtiPilot for a full UAV. This is for programming and hooking up to your computer. It also includes the buzzer. We are going to use a pitot tube, so this is the air sensor that gets connected to the F405 board. This is our GPS chip, which also gets connected to the F405 WNN board. So the GPS, and then we also have our pitot tube that we'll be installing. So anyway, the process of this build project is going to be, we're going to break open the flight test kit. We're going to install the wing and the elevator, the motor. We're initially going to install this receiver, and then once we get it flight tested, then we're going to take that receiver out and we're going to go ahead and put in the Maytech F405. And I will do videos on hooking this up and how to solder and get it all together. And then we'll take it out and fly it. So this will be maybe a week-long project here, so it depends how much time I got this week to commit to this. But that's where we're going with this build here. So let me put this stuff away, get it out of the way. We'll break right into the flight test kit here. The wing. So like I said, this is going to be what our students build if you're participating in the Before Takeoff Checklist program, whether in school or after school. This is going to be the kit that we're going to use in the Before Takeoff Checklist program. Separate this stuff out. We got push rods in here. Set those over here. We do have some control horns. I'll set those aside over here. I'll probably use my 3D printed control horns. So what's going to come in this kit here is basically a wing and a tail. So let's get the parts taken out of here. First one I'm going to take out is this tail section here, the elevator. So we're just going to free that up, run my knife over the connection spots here where the laser cutter doesn't cut all the way through. I'll just free that up. Just drag my knife through the slot and just free it. And it should pop right out. So there we go, we got our tail. While we're here, we can pop this out too. Show that in the garbage. So we got our tail, our elevator, and horizontal stabilizer. Next, we'll just cut out the rudder and the vertical stabilizer. Just free up all those little joints there with our knife. Let's see, run down one right here. I think we're all, there we go. So that's out. We are not going to use a rudder, so we're going to leave that connected here. Let's see, what next do we want to take out? We'll take out this is just used as a gauge to get your dihedral set on your wing. So we'll pop that out. I'll set that aside. We'll pop our wing out here. And let's see, I don't know, maybe I'll have to free that up a little bit too. Just cut through all those points where it's connected there. Sometimes you can pull it right off, sometimes you don't need to. So that is one part of the wing. Actually, I'm going to save some of these scraps because we use them to wipe off hot glue. Make a nice edge with the hot glue. Even this piece here, it's not going to be used for anything. This is a blank piece, but you never know if we had to recut out another rudder or vertical stabilizer, we could cut it out of that if we needed to. So it's always kind of good to keep this hanging out for a little bit, just in case you want to do something with it. Free this up as well. Again, we got some more scrap. I'll hang on to that till we're all done. And we'll just pop this out. Sometimes just helps to run the blade through there so you don't peel any of the paper off. I got enough scrap, so I'm going to get rid of that. Pop this off, and that's going to be the other half of the wing. These here, these two strips, these are spacers that we're going to use when we put our wing together. So you'll see how these go in place. Cut this in half, and I might cut a couple chunks out of there just to use the wipe glue. These are nice sized chunks, just to wipe glue or to form glue in the edges. You'll see how we use this little scrap material. It always comes in handy. And throw that away. Okay, first thing we're going to do here is apply bevel cut to the leading edge of the Flite Test wing, and huge shout out to the Flite Test guys for supplying these wings in this build kit. So anyway, to do this bevel cut, you're going to use a sharp knife, and we're going to cut at a 45 here, just like this, and we're trying not to cut into the foam, or I should say all the way through the foam, and cutting the paper on the other side. We're just trying to cut a nice 45-degree chunk out of the leading edge, just like that. Now I'm going to take this, we're going to do one on the other side as well. Start cutting this here, and again, just a 45-degree angle here, trying not to cut through the paper. If we do cut through the paper, we can fix it. It's not a big deal. The way we're going to fix it is we'll add some masking tape, some packing tape, and get it all fixed up. So anyway, there we are. And now we're going to just flex this a little bit, see if we got any high spots. And I'm thinking I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe one little high spot here I'll get rid of. Let's see, any other high spots? No, and I'm real happy with that. That's going to be just perfect. So I'm going to do the other leading edge now as well. So I'm going to break that open on the leading edge. Again, I'm going to use the edge of the table here to kind of give me some stability for while I'm cutting. And again, just at a 45, trying not to cut through the paper. Just trying to take the corner of the leading edge off so we can bend it. If we don't do this, we're not able to bend it. That looks good. Do the next side here. All right, let's see how this one looks. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to check it, see if there's any high spots on here. And no real high spots. So that's what you should have now. Next we're going to do is we're going to cut a bevel cut for our ailerons. So I'm just going to break our aileron out like that. And now I'm going to repeat that same process here on our aileron. I'm just going to cut that out at a 45-degree angle there. Let's see. I'm going to cut that angle out. Not on the control surface, but on the trailing edge. Might have to, because we got a area there where we can't cut through this right here, so I'm just going to slice that like that. And again, just at a 45, slowly bringing the knife through. I watch where the bottom edge of my blade is going and cutting. That's my technique, so I don't cut through the paper. And on this one, we only need to cut one. We don't need to cut both. So that's going to be our control surface, and you can see it can flex real nice. There's no resistance at all. That's like a perfect bevel cut. If it doesn't flex the way you know freely like that, just go back over and cut down any high spots like this. Just take them off. Like you can see, I got a couple little high spots, but mine weren't bad at all. Cut them out. You can also use a piece of sandpaper. So that, I'm totally happy with that one. Next, we're going to repeat that same thing on the other wing. Again, just lay it down. I'm going to start right here. Actually, on this one, I can work the whole length. I'm not stuck in a corner like I was the other one. Cutting that the whole length to here, and then just a little slice. Let's see how we did here. Oh, and that's beautiful. Perfect, perfect. All right. Next, these are our wing spars. And we're going to glue these wing spars into place right here. So those are going to get glued on right here. And I'm just waiting for my hot glue gun to heat up. Okay, let's move on here. Next, we're going to install our spars. And our spars are going to get installed right here along, that's not quite technically the leading edge, because this is technically the leading edge, but it's going to get installed on this piece of the foam here. So all I'm going to do is take my hot glue gun, here, put just a little bit of hot glue on here, just like that. Don't need a whole lot. The hot glue only adds weight to the airplane. Line that up with the front here, and we're just going to let that cool and set up. And again, I'm here in Gilbert, Arizona. It's a little warm here, so it's probably in the mid-90s right now, so it takes the hot glue just a little bit longer to set up. It's not like I'm inside in air conditioning here. Just make sure that stays on there nice and straight like that. So anyway, let's move on to the next one, the other side of the wing. We're going to do the same thing. Grab my hot glue here. A little bit of hot glue just like that. Lay it down on the wing there and this flap side, line it all up. And don't worry, if you make mistakes with this stuff, it is really forgiving. If you laid it in there right and it didn't come out right, we could simply cut out that little piece and then scab in a piece of our scrap. You really cannot mess up these Flite Test products. Love, love, love the guys over at Flite Test, and like I said, thanks to those guys for supplying the wings for this kit. Hopefully this year we get about 300 kids building these kits here in the Phoenix area, and I hope we expand the program too in the future. So we're going to set this one aside, grab our other wing, and now we're just going to grab a screwdriver, and these cuts right here, we're going to open those up with a screwdriver. So I'm just going to embed the screwdriver. I'm not trying to force it like through the foam, just trying to open that up a little bit. Just like that. And then what I'll do, so I'm just going to bend this over a little bit, just to kind of form it a little bit more. Right like that. Not going to apply any glue in there yet. But that's what we want this to look like. So, grab my hot glue gun here again. Make sure you got enough glue. It always stinks to kind of run out of glue. So I'm just going to put the tip of the hot glue gun in the seam there. Just a little bit of light pressure, get some glue in there. Doesn't need to be oozing out. I'm just going to take this because we're not trying to glue the spar and the airplane all together yet. We're just trying to form, get our wing formed. That's coming together real nice. Flex it up and down a little bit. And now I'm just going to hold this here. And let that glue in the seams cool and set up. Again, I'm here in Gilbert, Arizona, where it's still warm. I'm filming these videos in my garage, so it's the middle of August and almost 100 today. I think maybe 95, 98 degrees. But anyway, so it takes a little bit more time for this glue to set up in the heat here. Okay, so I'm happy with that. That turned out real nice. Okay, I'm going to set this one aside. Now we're going to go on and do this one, the other half of the wing. Again, I'm just going to take my screwdriver, run that over the opening. We're just trying to give ourselves a little bit of playroom here to get this to bend over on itself. Let's see. how this one's going to work out. Oh, really nice. So again, get our hot glue gun here. Got an extra stick ready to go. Put the hot glue right in that seam there. And then we'll flip this over, just like that. And we'll let that set up. And this is giving us the shape to the wing that we want. So it's got some nice camber on the top of the wing and relatively flat on the bottom of the wing when we're all done here. Let that set up. Got a little bit of hot glue, came out onto the, it's all right, we're gonna fix that right up. Don't want to do that quite yet, but our wing shape is there. A little bit of hot glue came out of the seam and caught the spar there a little bit. That's all that happened. No big deal. Just used my knife to free it up. No big deal at all. All right, next, we are going to glue this all up. Okay, let's finish installing or forming the wing. Here you can see the paper came up just a little bit. That's where the glue had contacted the spar here, but absolutely no big deal. No big deal at all. So to finish this off here, we're gonna add some glue into that bevel cut. Not a lot. Remember, glue just adds weight. And now we're finally going to add some glue to the spar. Just like that. I'm going to fold this over. And then we're just going to hold that like that. Let it form up real nice. Notice here I'm holding this all in place, but I've also got our aileron. I'm holding our aileron in place too, so that it stays nice and flush right here while this all sets up. That's going to give us a real nice wing, a nice flat bottom to the wing. And I'm adding just a little bit of pressure here. I'm not trying to crush it or anything. I'm just holding it with enough pressure to keep the shape. And notice I'm using the palm of my hand here to keep the aileron and the bottom all flush, just to hold it all in place while the hot glue cools and forms up. There we go. That's what it should look like. Hold that just a little longer here. Like I always say here in my garage out here in Phoenix, it's hot. It's not like we're working in the fall or in some other parts of the country where it's nice and cool. It's in the upper 90s here today and really high humidity. And let me get that fly. Anyway, it just takes a while for this hot glue to set up. Okay, so that one's done. Let's do the next one. Again, get my hot glue gun. I'm going to put some glue into the bevel cut there. Don't need a whole lot. And then some right here on the spar. Again, I'm trying to keep this nice and lightweight, so I'm not going overboard with the glue. bend that over. Remember, hold our trailing edge here nice and flat with the aileron. So we keep that nice flat structure to the bottom of the wing. And again, I'm just going to be patient, hold it here, let it all form up. Okay, so the glue is set up here on our wings. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to give these a little bit of dihedral here. So the dihedral that we want, if you look right now, if we were to just simply put these wings together like this, the wing halves I should say, it would be a flat wing with no dihedral. If we add a little bit of dihedral, it gives us a little bit more stability and makes it a little bit nicer flyer. Not that you couldn't do a flat wing like this, the flat wing would be just fine, but for the trainer stuff that we're doing, we're going to add a little bit of dihedral like this. That is going to make this wing a little bit more stable for the new flyers. So I want to crush this edge here just a little bit. And the way I'm going to crush this is just take the wing at a little angle here, kind of rub back and forth. Just crush that just a little bit. A little bit of pressure. And you could also take your screwdriver if you wanted and just kind of run that over the edge too. Either technique is going to work. So I did that on that one, on that half. And do it on this half too. Run it back and forth a little bit. I like the screwdriver takes it out real nicely. Just crush it at like a 45-degree angle, just like that. I'll take our wing, line it up. Oh, and that's like perfect. Absolutely perfect there. So I'm going to flip this over. What I'm going to do next is grab a piece of, I like using this Gorilla packing tape. This is the heavy duty. I really enjoy this stuff. It works good. Good strong tape. Anyway, I've got my wing lined up here, leading edge lined up. And I'm going to take this piece of tape and I'm going to create just a hinge right here for when we put this all together. And in the classroom, if you got somebody that can help you so you can keep this nice and straight, that'll work just fine. So anyway, I'm going to flip this over now, grab my dihedral gauge, and on this we're going to add the dihedral gauge. Hope you all can see that. Let's see, I'll try to get this in view for you just so everybody can see it. I'm just going to move some stuff on my bench here. So we're going to put this dihedral gauge over here just like that. Put on a wing. And then that's how we are going to form up this wing, just like that. So take that off. I'm going to fold this over. We're going to take our hot glue. I'm going to put some hot glue on the inside here on these pieces. Just like that. I'm going to fold this back over. That's why our hinge tape is on there. I'm going to put my dihedral gauge back on. And I'll give this a little bead of hot glue in here. We're just going to push our wing together. Keep the dihedral gauge on the surface of the table over there. I think you all can see that. I'm just going to let this set up here. While that's setting up, get another piece of packing tape here. Run that right across here like that. There we go. We'll let that set up and cure. Just kind of holding this in place so that we keep our dihedral. Give it a minute or two to dry. We'll move on. Okay, now that we've let our wing set up here, the glue is cooled. I'm going to remove the dihedral gauge, and we're going to do a couple things here. We want the ability to move our wing all the way back like that if necessary. So what we're going to do here in the flight test kit, we are going to take out this whole section. There's no need for it in our project here. So you can freehand this, or you can use a ruler if you wish. I'll grab a ruler here just because I think some of the kids that are doing this might want to be like really accurate, and it's easy to be accurate with the ruler. So I'm just going to line that up just like that, and we're going to take this section out. I'm just going to run my knife through there. We could have easily done this ahead of time too. So just going to remove that section. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to add a skewer back here to protect our trailing edge from the rubber bands. So the way we're going to do that, so all I'm going to do is get my skewer here. I've got my clipper, but you could easily use a knife, or a knife will work just fine. I'm going to clip this right here, and the way I'm going to clip this just so it doesn't splinter is I kind of put a little pressure on the put a little bit of pressure. I squeeze the handles a little bit together just to create a groove through there, and I twist it. And this will prevent us from getting like splinters out of the wood, and then I'll snip it all away. And there you see I end up with a nice clean cut. I'm going to flex this, bend it just a little bit. You might even hear it pop. And notice you hear a little tiny bit of crinkling when I bent this. That's so that when I glue this in here, I've got that curve. So I'm going to take my hot glue gun. Just going to put a light bead of hot glue here. Into that edge, and then carefully, so I don't burn myself, I'm going to apply that skewer and just hold it in place there. Just like that. Now I'll grab some packing tape. A little bit of packing tape here. Let's start down here on one side. Run it around over the top. Do the same thing on the other side. And just push that down in there real nice. And then I'll do one in the middle here too. Wrap this around the leading edge just a little bit. Just like that. Down around here. Notice it's a little bit long and I don't really want it to come over the top, so I'm just going to cut it right there. And And there we go. Form that tape. And now we got a nice strong wing here. And lightweight too. So, next part here of this build is going to be to install our servos and our control horns. So in the flight test kit here, you get these wood control horns, which are fine. I'm going to use the control horns that we 3D print, but just follow my technique for installing the control horns if you use the wood ones here, because the technique is exactly the same. Okay, let's continue here. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to install the 3 servos. One servo is going to be to control our elevator. The other 2 are going to be used to control our ailerons. We have the 3D printed control horns that we're going to use at the school. And those are the wood control horns that are provided by Flite Test. Either one of these will work. So here, these are the push rod connectors, and we'll review how to put this all together. Anyway, first thing we're going to do, we're going to bust into our servos here. And each one of these needs to be centered. So we're going to go through that again. Open these up. Break out our parts here. I'm going to grab another little container here. So I can empty our parts onto it. Just like that. Okay. I'm just going to randomly install the servo horn there. And what I like to do is I like to kind of think ahead of time how I want this to lay out. So I want this to lay out just like that on our wing. I want the wire to be flush here with this edge and then run down into the fuselage, so just like that. Also, we're going to line that up with, you'll see there's little score cuts here for our control horns to go into, so that's how we're going to line that up. And I'm going to walk you through the whole process here of installing all this. So I randomly installed my control arm here. I'm going to hook this up to the our servo tester, which also serves to center our servo. So you'll notice these have a 3 position, actually, and I hooked that in wrong. Flip it around. Rookie mistake. So you notice the first position here where this light is illuminated. And this is connected to the rheostat there and allows you to work the servo through the full range. If I click this button one more time, it goes to center. And this button doesn't do anything. So that's center. If I click it one more time, it just runs it through like a test feature. So I'm going to go back to center, and that is where the center position is on the servo. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take and grab the little screw that came with this. And we're going to install that. Get my Phillips screwdriver over here. So I'm just going to take it, I hold it with my nail like that, put it into the hole there, and just give it a tighten down. And you don't have to go super tight, just tight, like that. Next, I'll open up the next package. Center these ones. Get rid of the box, get rid of that. Again, I'm going to open this up and dump all my parts and pieces on there. And like I've said in other videos, you got 2 different screws here. You've got a machine screw, and then you've got a pointy head screw. This pointy head screw is actually used if you were going to install this servo into like a piece of wood or a plastic or something like that. That's what this screw is for. This screw is not for attaching the control horn. The machine screw right there, that little machine screw, that's what we use. So I'm going to randomly, actually this one's going to go on this side. I'm going to run this one on this side. So I want the control horn to be up like this. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to plop that on there. Okay, so when I lay this out, I want this one so that the wire runs here. Let me see if I can grab this all in one. Yep. So I want the wire to run right here, just like that. So I can tuck that in there and it's not dangling in the wind or anything. So that one's going to go on that side. So let's center this one up. And again, just follow, we got negative, positive, and signal. The negative wires are brown. Our positive wires are red. The signal is the yellow. Install that in here. And again, go to that center position. That's the centered position. That's the test position. Click it back to the center position there. And there's center. Let's see if we can make that better. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Yeah, I'll just leave it like that. That's fine. So anyway, we'll pop that off. Turn our tester off. Put that out of the way. So grab our little machine screw that came in the package there. Again, I'm just holding it onto the screwdriver with the tip of my nail. Put it into the hole there and just give it a nice snug it up. I'm not trying to go like super tight, just tight. Don't have to wrench it down or anything. There we go, just like that. Something I like to do before we move on with installing our push rods and the whole 9 yards is I like to make sure that these holes are big enough to accommodate our push rod. And the easiest way to do that is to take your push rod and you can try to force it in there. If it doesn't go through, you'll notice it takes a lot of pressure. It's not working. Actually, I did get this one through. Just got to keep working it. Yeah, so that one did go through. I'll show you the alternative method that I use. Let me get my torch here. You could easily use a lighter. A torch works really good. So what I do is just grab my torch here. I'm going to grab a push rod. Just heat it up a little tiny bit. Like that. And I'm just going to poke it through the hole. Just like that. And I'll do the second one too in case we ever decide to use the second one. Now the hole is perfect. I'll do the same thing with this one. We'll heat it up just a little tiny bit. Line it up with the hole and push it through. And again, I'll do the second hole on this one too. And there you go. Now those will accommodate the 1 millimeter push rod. Let me just get my little torch out of the way here and we'll move on. So we got our servos are centered, ready to be installed here. And this one's going to go over here, this one's going to go here. I'm going to peel off, actually this one didn't have a sticker, but peel it off and then just take your knife, make some score cuts here on the bottom side of the servo, just like that. That's going to help better adhere the servo to the control surface. So just like that. I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I could even install the push rod like that. And line it up even better, like that. I'm going to cut just a little indent where the wing on that servo is going to go. It's going to go right there. I can use the tip of a skewer here, just open it up a little bit more. Just like that. Something I could have done first is I could have installed this control horn. I'll move the wing out of the way. So I'm going to take the control horn here and just push this through. These might need to be opened up just a little bit. I'm just going to take my knife, sink it in there and twist it around a little bit. Help open that up a little bit. Now it should go through there. And yes, I'll take our nut and I'm going to put that on there like that. Before I do that, I got a little bit of blue thread locker. If you don't have blue thread locker, don't worry. I'm going to show you an alternative technique. Put a little bit of thread locker on there, just like that. Put my cap back on. Now I'm just going to take that little nut and screw it on there. And that thread locker is going to help keep that nut from falling off. So we still want this to rotate in here. We just don't want the nut to come off. In the little package here, you're also going to have screws. These screws are used to keep the push rod in place. And you'll see how this all goes together here. So I'm just going to take my screw, insert it into the push rod connector just like that. Just get it started. We don't want it to block that little hole that's there. So this one is going to get installed right here like that. So to help make that easier, again, I'm just going to take my skewer and open this up a little bit, poke it through, open it up. We'll do a test fit here, and that fits real nice. I'll get some hot glue, bury the hot glue into there, and then install the control horn just like that. I'm gonna let that cure. You'll notice these control horns have a little hole. That little hole helps to keep the control horn in place after you glue it. That little hole, glue goes through that hole and acts to grab the control horn so it doesn't accident, so it has less of a chance of pulling out. So that's why that little hole is there. So let's get this one set up. This one is going to go on this side, over here like this. And actually, you know what? I wanted this one to go on that side, so I'm going to pull this out. I'm very particular. I like this on the outside portion. So I'm just going to pull that out before it cured. Just going to open this up here. We'll repeat the process over here. Just like that. I'll sink this in there. The reason why I did that is because I like access to the screw on the outside of the wing. I don't like it on the inside, because if I have to reset my aileron or adjust the push rod, it's much easier if the screw is facing on the outside versus on the inside. It's hard to get a screwdriver in there when it's attached to the airplane. So we'll go ahead and do this one next. So this one, you got to remember, it's going to go on there like that. So I'm going to push this through on this side. Got to open this up just a tiny bit. Just grab my utility knife and twist it around real lightly. I'm going to put that through there, just like that. Again, we'll get our thread locker. Put just a tiny bit of thread locker on there. You don't need a bunch. Get rid of my cap. gonna hold this, grab a nut, put the nut over the top of the threaded screw, and then just twist that on there. We're trying to let this be free so it can move freely. Now, if you didn't have any thread locker, you could easily take your hot glue gun like this and just add a small dab of hot glue on there, just like that. And that'll keep it from going anywhere. So I'm just showing you different techniques here. There we go, I just took a little bit of the excess off. Making a mess too while I'm at it. Anyway, so this one's ready to be put in place. So we're gonna put that one in right here. Put a little hot glue in there. And just like that. So I got access to my screw on the outside. Oh, one thing I forgot to do, I forgot to put the screw in, but no big deal, it's easy to do. Yeah, we'll wait for that to cure so it's not moving around on me. Alright, let's go on. I'll let this set up over here. That one's set up. Alright, let's go on to installing the servo over on that side. Grab my push rod. In the kit, I'm going to push the push rod through that top hole, bend it around just like that, and I'm going to just take and line up the push rod, move this so that you can see. So all I'm doing is lining up the push rod with where it's going to get attached. And this push rod's a little bent, so I'm just tweaking it a little bit. They're really easy to tweak, put into shape. So right there, see how I got that lined up just like that? Now I'll take, just put a little mark right there, and that's where the wing of the, servo is going to go, like that. I'll just sink just my skewer through there. We'll do a test fit here. And that is looking really good. So I'm happy with that. What we can do ahead of time here too, before we go any further, is we can cut the excess 1mm push rod off. So you can see we got a whole bunch of excess there. We don't need it. I've got my wire cutter here. Nothing too scientific here. I'm just going to mark somewhere beyond the push rod connector here and just cut it. And I was just marking that with my finger. And then I just took my wire cutter and went inside of that and cut. So now we've got a nice length of push rod there, 1mm push rod. And I always think it's easier to do it this way. Go ahead and push that push rod through there before we glue anything down. And this is sometimes, these connectors that I got are real tight tolerance 1mm holes going through here. Sometimes when you snip the push rod, it deforms the circularness a little bit of the push rod. If that happens, just grab yourself some sandpaper, some like 120 or 220 grit, whatever you got to work, and then just slide that push rod back and forth. Or you can take it on the table like this and just take that squareness out of it. Just go like this, and now it'll go through if you have any problems. Just showing you how to solve problems should they arise. So this is ready to be glued in here. So I'm just going to grab my hot glue, apply some hot glue here. Oh, one thing I forgot to do, I wanted to remove that sticker on the bottom of the servo. So anyway, just going to take this, install it into the hot glue like that. Just like that. I'll add a little bit of hot glue here just to keep the servo from moving around. The one thing you don't want to do is accidentally glue your control arm shut. That's not good. So just a little bit there. And there we go. Now I created a lock with the hot glue around the servo so the servo doesn't move around on us. We'll let that dry, cool down. Next thing I can do while that's settling up is I'm going to hold my aileron just about as straight as possible, and I'm going to start cinching this screw down. And you want to go kind of tight there. But now you can see we've got our one aileron connected and the servo connected. So let's move over to the other side. Get rid of the glue strands there. Okay, so we've already got our push rod installed here, and that alignment's not perfect. That's better, I like that there. So we're gonna move that over a little bit. No big deal. I'm just gonna poke a little hole there, get it started with my knife just like that. Grab my skewer, just open that up a little bit. Push that in place in there. Just like that. Again, just like we did on the other side, wire cutter, just beyond the connector here. Grab it and just give it a good squeeze. Move this out of the way. And then before we glue anything in place, poke that through. And again, like I said earlier, we might have to, oh, it went through, I got lucky. So, got that in there like that. Now we'll add our glue. Just like that, and just make sure you don't get any glue on the control arm. Hold it in place so it's nice and flush back here. And then I'll add just a little bit of glue to lock it in place. Like that. And I'll add a little bit on the other side here too. But again, I'm not trying to get any glue on the control arm. I use this just to lock it in. That's locked in. I'm really happy with how that all looks. This is cured up now, so I can work on this a little bit easier since it won't move around on me. I'm going to hold that aileron roughly flush. Give that a good tighten so it doesn't move around on me. Just like that. That's looking really nice. Okay, something I like to do here is tuck my wires back like that, so that they're out of the way, and we'll do that by adding just a little bit of hot glue. So right here where my tape is, right in the corner there, just going to run a little bit of hot glue. Take my wire, sink it in there, just like that. Don't need a lot. And I'm just going to let that dry for a second. We'll do the same thing on the other side. A little bit of hot glue right there. And our servo wire. Trying to do this so you go so you can see on the camera there. Sometimes that means my hands are in weird positions that I'm not used to normally working in. Bed that into the glue like that, and we're just going to let that set up and cure. Could add a piece of tape there if you wanted, but I'm just going to sit here and hold it for a second. It'll be dry in just a second. Just a little bit, in case you need to remove a servo. It's easy to get to in the future. You don't have to remove a whole bunch of glue. So anyway, next we'll go on to installing our tail surface. Okay, so earlier we popped our tail surface out of the foam board. So we're going to put this all together now. This is our horizontal stabilizer and our elevator. This would be our vertical stabilizer, and this would be our rudder. We're not going to use this a rudder configuration in this setup, so we're going to leave the rudder just as it is, like that. So let's get busy. We're going to use another control horn here again, and we're going to install that control horn right there. So same process that we did with the ailerons. Something I'm going to do is, because these are 3D printed, just twist the knife around there a little bit just to open it up a little bit. I want the access to the screw to be on this side. So this is going to get installed like that. We'll add our little bit of thread locker. A little bit of thread locker, grab my nut. And again, if you only have thread locker, you can easily add a little bit of hot glue to keep that from moving around on you. So I'm also going to install the screw. It's easier to install the screw now than when it's on the model or installed on the control surface. Just maybe one or two little windings. We don't want to block that hole. I'm also going to check, because sometimes these holes on these push rod connectors are really tight, and this one's nice. It is tight, but it's going to work just fine. So anyway, this is going to get installed right here. I just take I hate caps being off of glue. Cap my thread locker. Anyway, I'm just going to run the tip of the push rod in there like that. Get some glue in there. Push the nose in there to get the glue down in there. And then we're going to install the control horn. Just push it in there. And this glue is so hot that it does want to make the plastic control horn, the PLA, a little bit soft. So just put it in there, make sure it bottoms out nice and flush, and you're good to go. Oh, you know what? I realized on this right now I forgot to cut the bevel cut. So let's go and cut our bevel cut in this too. I can still do that. So to cut that bevel cut, I think you can see Yep, you can see. I have to adjust. It's going to take that bevel cut right here. Another rookie mistake to forget to do the bevel cut before installing the control horn. So there we go. Plenty of deflection there. Up. If we got any high spots, you can take them down, but that's plenty good for me. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to modify the vertical stabilizer just a little bit. We don't need this little piece here on the front, and you'll see why when we install it on the model. So that's all I'm going to do is just take my knife, make a nice straight cut across there, and get rid of that piece. We're going to check our fit. Our fit's good. Our elevator's able to deflect up. A little bit of glue came out there. That's no big deal. No big deal at all. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here. A little bit of glue right here. Right like that. And then I'm going to push these together like a puzzle piece. Just like that. If you want, you can take and give yourself a little bead right here. A little bead right here. Grab a piece of that scrap foam I told you about earlier. And just make a nice, wipe it nice and clean. Just like that. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take a 90 degree, something that's got a 90 degree, and this is the dihedral gauge that we used earlier. I'm going to lay my control surface down flat, and I'm just going to butt this up to keep it nice and straight while it cures. So you see I got that. I've got my dihedral gauge, just keeping that nice and square so it doesn't end up sideways or crooked. Just hold that for a minute. Let the hot glue cure. That's starting to cure up real nice. So I'm going to set that aside. We're all done with our links, our push rod connectors. Just push these aside for a second. So the fuselage comes just like this. It has this center section still installed in it. We're going to break that out. So that's all you're going to do. Grab your knife and go through and then just slice through those little connect spots with your knife. Right like that. Did I get them all? Yep. Now we're going to save this piece because we can use this still if you want. It's something that we can use later to put aside on the model if we want. You'll notice here on the model, on the fuselage, we have several different holes for installing skewers. That's so that we can adjust where our wing goes here. Anywhere along this part, we can adjust our wing to go multiple spots. That's one of the nice things about this kit, is that you can create all different kinds of wings, tail surfaces, you can add different batteries and different anything, and then it gives you the flexibility to move the wing around to accommodate your center of gravity. Okay, this is why we cut that little piece off here, because when you glue this onto the tail like that, if we still had that piece, it would be bumped up, and we don't want that. We just want it flush like that. just like that. One thing you might notice is on the back end here, you might have to cut just a little bit of the back end off to accommodate the movement of the elevator. So we're going to do that. That's all I'm going to do, straight up and down with my knife. I'm just going to cut like a 1/4 inch off the back end, just like that. Let me put this back on here, see if our control surface moves all the way, and it does. So just, it's a little bit long on this side, that's why we did that. I'm just being picky here, getting it perfect. Okay, before we put our tail on, I'm going to show you how to put a glass rod through here. And that's just going to give us a little bit more structural, a little bit more structure to the bottom of this, fuselage. So we're going to install this glass rod right here on the bottom of the fuselage. The way we're going to do that, let me grab a straight edge here. Okay, I've got my straight edge. And now I'm just going to put this about halfway, hold it in place, and this might be something that you can do with your partner, might work a little better. But we're just going to take this knife, I'm going to see, let me put a little dot where halfway is here, just because I'm picky. Let me grab my marker here. All right, halfway is like right there, and halfway back here is like right there, or in between, in the middle, I guess better wording. I'm just going to take my straight edge, line those two up, hold my straight edge in place, and I'm just going to make a small approximately a 1/4 inch deep, not very deep. I'll go over that twice. Just like that. Let me get my straight edge out of the way here. Okay. So this is going to get installed. Oh, one more thing I can do here. Now I can take my skewer, run my skewer through there just to open that up a little bit. And then I'm going to do a practice fit. Grab the back end of the skewer and just push this down in there like that. Just be careful when you get to the back end here. You don't want to inadvertently crack your tail by applying too much pressure. So notice I got my back end on there to help support it. Right there. I'm just going to grab my snippers like that. And now our spar channel is there. I'm going to pop it out. And when you're doing this build at the school with me, you're going to have plenty of CA glue. I want to make this just a little bit deeper right here. You're going to have plenty of CA glue. So I'm going to grab my medium CA glue here, my Star Bond, make sure it tip is clear, and it is. I'm just going to take the tip of that and put it into the groove there just like that. And then, without getting glue all over myself, I'm going to reinstall this spar. You don't have to work too quickly with the CA glue. It takes a couple of minutes for it to dry. You'd use a popsicle stick if you got a popsicle stick too. Either one's going to work. Just like that. And then I'll go back over the top of this with some more glue. Push this down a little bit further in there. Okay, I'm going to go back over the top now. Just like that. Give it a second to kind of ooze into the frame there. Grab my accelerant for the CA and just give it a couple spritzing right over the top. We'll let that cure up. And the next thing we'll do, we'll add a little bit of E6000 to it. Going to grab a rubber glove here. Okay, so we're moving on here. I've got this in there with CA glue. This is one optional little thing you can do. I'm going to apply some E6000. What I do to save rubber gloves is I take the rubber gloves and just cut the fingers off. Just like that. Because a lot of times when you're doing this kind of stuff, you only are preventing like one finger from getting glue or whatever on it. So it just makes sense to cut the tips of the rubber glove off, the latex glove, and then you can just put it on your finger like that to protect your finger from whatever glues you're using. I'm using E6000 today. You could easily use goop for this as well. And I've just got a little bit left, so hopefully I got enough here in this tube to complete the job I want to do here. I'm just going to go right over with that E6000, right over the top of that spar. I think my E6000 is just barely going to make it. Okay, so I got a nice healthy bead of E6000 on there. Now I'm going to take my latex finger here. I'm putting a little bit of pressure, not a lot. I'm just trying to get that E6000 into the groove there and along the bottom of the surface here. And the E6000 starts to set up pretty quickly, so you don't want to mess around, monkey around too much, because you end up with all kinds of chunky spots. So there you go. It's E6000 in. We're going to let that dry for a little bit here. Okay, so let's keep moving on here. The wing is done. Turned out very nice. Totally happy with how the wing turned out. The fuselage here, really the only thing that we do to this is just embed that fiberglass spar, and I coated it with some E6000. Still not completely dry, but it's dry enough that we can work with it. What I'm going to do next is we're going to install the tail on the back of this airplane. Just like that. So, installing the tail here, we are, well, the first thing when we install the tail, and I did this in the last video, was we made sure that we had enough room for the elevator to deflect down. So we had to cut just a little bit of the fuselage away there. Now, let's just give it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not going too heavy on the glue to hold the tail in place. And you can see it's really easy to line up with the front here because you have the parts that recess backwards. So we'll just hold that in place for a second. I'll grab some toothpicks here and I'll show you what we do with the toothpicks. I'm going to use the toothpicks to really secure this in place nicely. So I'm just going to take my toothpick here. I'm going to move this at an angle so you can see. First toothpick I'm going to put like at an angle down and in. I'll cut that flush. I'll just take it, reverse it around, and again this one now is going to go down and away. And it hurts the fingers a little bit to push that toothpick in there, so I'm just using a screwdriver. Just like that. Flip the model around. We'll do the same thing on this side. Get my wing out of the way here. And again, just at an angle, we're just locking the tail in place is all we're doing. And again, down and at an angle there. Push that in place. Just like that. And now that tail is not going anywhere on this model. It's nice and locked in place. Our elevator moves nice and freely. Next thing we got to do is install our elevator servo. So just like all the other servos that we've used in this project, the aileron servos, we've got to center the servo. So I got my servo tester out here. Empty those parts into there. And the only control horn that we're going to use out of this package is just the just this control horn right here. So I'm just going to randomly apply the control horn, and well, I said randomly, but let's see, I'm going to change that around because this servo I'm going to install here. So I want this control horn to be in that position like that, just like that. And you'll see how we're going to install that here in a second. First, we got to make sure it's centered. So plug in that's my signal wire, my positive in the middle and my negative. Line those up with the servo tester. We got negative, positive, and signal. So signal is going to go on the bottom just like that. So signal wire is on the bottom. Turn this on, move it to the center position, and my servo is centered. We can run it through the test position, see if there's anything that doesn't feel right with the servo. Put it on the rheostat position, move it around, and back to the center position. So that servo is now centered. I'll install it. And again, you have two different screws. This is that machine screw that comes in the kit. You're going to use the machine screw as opposed to using the pointed head screw there. You're going to use the black machine screw to attach the arm. I get the screw started on the tip of my screwdriver here, and then just put it in place here. We're just going to go snug like that. Disconnect it. And now grab one of my push rods here. Let's see. I cut the one I wanted earlier, so I grab one of my spare ones here. All right, so like I said earlier, sometimes it's hard to get this push rod through this little hole. So what I like to do is grab my propane torch here. We're going to heat up the end of that push rod just a little bit. just a little bit. You could heat it up with a lighter or whatever you might have laying around. You could even use your stove. And I just poke it through there real quick. I'm going to do the second hole too, because sometimes we do use the second hole and it'll be ready to go. Just like that. Let me get this propane torch out of the way. Okay, moving on. Now you see the push rod goes through the control horn there very nicely. Also, it's easier if you go ahead and install the push rod ahead of time, and it's just about the right length. I won't have to cut it down at all, it appears. So it's easier to do this before you get it all connected, in my opinion. And like I said earlier, these 1 millimeter push rod connectors are sometimes a little finicky, but I got that one through. So this is going to get installed like that. I'm going to slide it back so I don't lose this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little slot right here that runs up into the fuselage, and you'll see why I'm doing this. And I'm only cutting that just maybe a 1/4 inch deep or so. I'm going to take my servo and I'm going to take a little bit of that wire, a little bit of excess wire, I'm going to push that in there, just like that. So I'm just doing a test fit here, and then I'm going to run the wire right through this channel. So to get that wire into the channel there, I'm just going to take the servo back out, and I'm going to just, like we're using dental floss here, I'm going to push the wire down into that little slot we created. Use a skewer here to help push that in place. Better yet, a toothpick, a tongue depressor works good. Just like that. Push it into place just like that. Now I'll take my servo, plop it in place, and the only place I'm going to add hot glue is I'm going to retract the servo just a little bit. I'm just going to put a little bit here and a little bit there, just on the wings. No need to put hot glue all over inside there. And you notice when I push the servo in place, the hot glue comes up and through the little hole that's on the wing there of the servo. And that's perfect. That'll lock it in place. This hot glue attaches really nice to the to this EPP foam because it is so rough. So the hot glue makes a really, really nice bind with the surface. This is already centered. Oh, and my push rod fell out here. That's okay. Just put it back in. Now you get to see where the struggle happens just a little bit. There we go. I got it back in. I'm going to take the elevator. Now we know this is centered already. It didn't move at all when I installed it. I'm just going to give it a slight up deflection as I tighten the screw. And if you've got a classmate that can help you, that classmate can help keep a little bit of pressure here on the push rod from keeping it from deflecting as you tighten down. So I'm going to tighten this. I'm trying to keep the angle here so that you could see at home what I'm doing here. Notice I'm using the tip of my thumb to keep that from flexing up. And there we go. It's nice and tight in there. Now you notice the push rod's got a lot of play. This is how we're going to take care of that. I've got 2 zip ties here. Just take the zip tie like this. Actually, I don't want it like that. I want it like this. I'll push the zip tie through like that. I'm going to cinch that down until I just have a little tiny eyelet there for the push rod to go through. Then I'm going to take my snippers and I'm going to cut it at an angle, like a dagger, and that'll allow me to push it into the foam. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Put it on here like this, push it through there, tighten the zip tie down, just so we just got a little tiny eyelet like that. Again, I'm going to cut that at an angle so that it makes like a dagger. Throw that away. And now we're ready to install those. I like using my little hobby knife here to create the initial cut where these are going to go. This one I'm going to install like right here, right like that. I got a pesky fly flying around me. You probably hear it in the microphone. So I'm just going to put a little, use my hobby knife here at an angle. Just make a slice down like that. This one I'm going to install more toward the aft end of this push rod, so probably like right here. I'm just going to create again, another little slice for that to go into. And at the same time, I'm going to grab both of them, put them into the hole that we cut ahead of time, and now we can push those into place, just like that. Just like that. And now these are not, this push rod will not deflect as much when it's being used to actuate the control surface. So just add a little bit of hot glue here to keep it from moving around. I'm going to push that in place real good. Push that one in place real good. Grab one of my little scrap pieces here and just engage the hot glue around the zip tie just like that. So that's all installed. Elevator servo's installed. If you wanted to add a rudder servo, that's what this hole is for. And then you do the same thing, but run it back here to your rudder. So this hole is for a rudder servo. Next, let's go ahead and install the motor is already installed on this puck. We've got a tri-blade 5.3 prop. This is going to get installed through here. We got our ESC and our receiver already. So what makes this easier, I'm going to poke a hole through here. A couple different ways you can do that. You can cut it out with a knife. You can just take your knife, poke it in there, and just twist around and cut it out. You can take your screwdriver, poke it through there, just like that. Or another technique you can do here for this is to melt it with your propane torch or a lighter if you got one. And that's all I'm going to do is take my propane torch, trying to find my, there we go, I found my junky screwdriver. I'm just going to heat that up a little tiny bit. Heat it up just a little tiny bit, dig it into that hole, push it through, and now we got a hole through there. A little bit of foam right there I'm going to get rid of. There we go. Alright, now we're ready to push, and I already did the, already installed the bullet connectors on here. I'll pull the video from installing the bullet connectors and putting them all together. I'll insert that in here so that you can see how we do this. But one of the things that makes it easy here is I'm going to push these through before I actually install the motor. So I'm going to push those bullet connectors through, grab them on the other side as they come through. Okay, so all three of those are through. And then, as you all are probably familiar with, or most of you are familiar with, after we pull those through, these three wires are going to get installed on our engine speed controller. And they can go in any order right now, doesn't matter. We'll fix it later if they need to be fixed. Just like that. Then take the motor here, suck up some of the slack from those wires, slide it over, and give it a good pushing, kind of supporting the back as you push, just so you don't break it on accident. And that's nice and tight in there. Okay, so we should be to this point. I like adding the panel from the back. Let me get rid of this torch. I like adding a little bit of this panel and putting it back in place here. So what I'm going to do to do that is just take my knife, give myself some room here, and I'm just eyeballing what approximately about a ½ inch worth of foam looks like. And I'm just going to make one nice slice through that foam like this. Watching your fingers so you don't cut a finger here. And we're not trying to do this all one pass. Notice me, I took several passes there. So now we can install that like that. Just like that. So now we have a panel on this side. So install that. That's all I'm going to do is take a little bit of hot glue here on the top. Don't have to get too crazy with it. And then I'll put a little bit on the bottom too. Flip this around. Oh, and you see how even I make mistakes. Flip it around, I had it the wrong way. Flip it around. Sometimes I leave myself a little gap where I know I can grab it without getting hot glue on me. And then just kind of sandwich this down so that it locks in place where you want it. You get a little bit of playtime here with the hot glue as it settles or cures. Okay, I'm just going to hold this for a second here and let the hot glue do its thing. Make little adjustments here to keep this nice and flush. One of the things that's nice about this EPP foam is if you crack it, break it, it is so easily repaired with a little bit of hot glue, a little bit of goop, some toothpicks even if you want to stabilize your broken part. This airplane airframe, I should say, should last you a very, very, very long time before you completely trashed it. Just going to hold this for another couple minutes here. Okay. So moving on, next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you guys how I create a backing for the Velcro strips that we're going to install. So this ESC I'm going to install right back there like that. So to install that back there, I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue, drizzle it in there, and the hot glue is going to provide the backing for the Velcro, the sticky back of the Velcro to adhere to. So that's going to go back there like that. My receiver, I'm going to install the receiver like right there. So I'll also do that at the same time. Oop, I'm going to add some hot glue down in here. And again, that's all that hot glue is doing, is providing a surface for the Velcro, the sticky backing of the Velcro to stick to. So this ESC already has the cloth side, or the fuzzy side of the Velcro installed on it. So I'm just going to cut 2 little pieces of Velcro here of the plastic side. Just like that. And then what I find is easier is if you take Velcro and attach it to the other surface first, and then put it where you want it to go. Just like that. Now I'll do the same thing with this fuzzy part of the Velcro. Got a little hot glue here on my shirt. Attach that like that. And then stick that right there. Right like that. And that is exactly how I wanted it. I could have installed the elevator servo first, but we'll do that next. And we got our aileron servo connectors here. So we'll keep moving on. We'll let that cure. We'll attach our wing here. And actually, before we attach the wing, let me go get a battery so we can get a center of gravity on this. And I'll show you how we attach the wing based on where our airplane's center of gravity is. So, okay, moving along here. On this setup, I'm going to use a 3S 2200 milliamp hour battery. This is a race day quad. These happen to have really nice form factor for this airplane. Those are going to, the battery gets installed right up here like that. It's a nice pressure fit. You almost don't even need any Velcro or anything. In fact, I would suggest no Velcro, and then use a battery strap here if you want. But anyway, let's go ahead. We're going to install the wing. Actually, we're going to put the battery in and get our CG first. So I'm going to go like right there with the battery. We got plenty of room to connect there. And our CG happens to be right about there. And just so I mark that, I'm going to just take a toothpick, put it right there, just because it's convenient. So that's where the center of gravity is based on how the model is put together right now. Here we have a Hershey bar shaped wing. The center of gravity of your model is all dependent on the wing. The wing drives where the center of gravity is. The fuselage doesn't care at all where the center of gravity is, but your wing is what drives where the center of gravity is. On any wing, the center of gravity is 20 to 30% of the mean aerodynamic chord, and I should back that up. That's on a Hershey bar wing. 20 to 30% of the mean aerodynamic chord. So the mean aerodynamic chord on this wing in millimeters is 135 millimeters. So 20%, so I'll write this right on top of the wing so everybody can see. Let's go back here. This wing is 135 millimeters. So the chord, 135 millimeters. Okay? So let's take 20% of that. 135 times 0.2 equals 27 millimeters. So now I'm going to measure 27 millimeters from the leading edge. There's 25, 26, 27 right there. That's 27. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to take 135 and multiply it by 0.3. So 135 times 0.3 is 40.5. Right there. So 40.5. And then this one was, let me redo the math again, 135 times 0.2 is 27. So somewhere in here is where the CG is going to be most favorable on this wing. Right in here. This one was 30% of the mean aerodynamic chord, and this one is 20% of the mean aerodynamic chord. It changes a little bit for swept wings, but anyway, there are calculators online that'll do that. So I know right now when I install this wing, I want that toothpick to be right underneath here. That's where the center of gravity is going to be on this wing. So let me get some rubber bands here, and we'll tie down this wing. Okay, so picking up where we left off here, we marked the area here for where our center of gravity should be on this wing. And it's anywhere from 20 to 30% of the mean aerodynamic chord. Right here is where this wing is really going to enjoy flying. This wing is 135 millimeter in chord. 30% was 40.5, 20% was 27 millimeters. We marked with the toothpick where our center of gravity is with everything installed, the battery, tail section, the motor. So right there is our center of gravity. I'm just going to take the wing and position it so it's over the top, so that this part is right over the top of that. I'll try to hold that in place there. Right over the top of the toothpick, like that. Now we'll install a couple of skewers here to tie down our wing with the rubber bands. Put one back here. All right, I got some nice thick rubber bands that are going to give us some really good hold down here. Stretch that across. And in the video here, I'm only using 2 rubber bands, but you can always add more. 2 would be I wouldn't even use 2. When I go out and fly, I always have like 4 on there. You can kind of move the wing around a little bit, get it in there. So now let's see if our center of gravity is where we want it, and it's perfect right there. I'll get rid of this toothpick. And now we'll start connecting up our servo wires. So right here, you notice there's no space for this one to go through. So I'm just going to take my hobby knife and open up one of these little areas right here a little bit, and then use that should be more than enough to get that through. I'm just pushing it, poking it through the seam there. We can go on the other side here, pull that through. So that one's through. Tip this upside down so it's easier for y'all to see. This servo wire is going to get attached to one of the Y cables from our receiver for the aileron. Signal goes to signal, so yellow, in this case this Y harness is white, so it's going to be yellow to white, brown to black, and red to red, obviously. And then we'll attach this one, and again we'll do the same thing, brown to brown, red to red. White, yellow is signal here, white is signal here. Push that together real good. Oh, and then the next thing we can do is install pull our receiver out. And this is our elevator servo. And the elevator is number 3. 1 is always going to be your throttle, 2 is your aileron, 3 is your elevator, 4 is your rudder. And in this case, we don't have rudder. Signal always goes up, black or brown always goes down. We'll flip this back over. I like having my ESC power supply at the back. We'll tuck those wires in place there. Put that in place, tuck the wires back there. What I'm going to do to make this nice and pretty is I'm just going to slice a little channel there. I'll turn this upside down so you can see what I'm doing here. That's all I'm going to do to tuck that wire away real nice is just cut a little bit of the foam. And I know this is kind of hard for me to do and keep it in camera view here as well, but I'll open that up a little bit too if I can find it. And then I'll work this in here. You in the classroom, you got your partner that you're working with. You guys can work together. One person hold it while another person gets that into the model. I just tuck that in there just like that. You can also use a tongue depressor, like that one. Just push it in there like that. And then that keeps the wires nicely tucked away. So you can do as much wire management as you want on these. Make it look nice and pretty back there. You can even use some zip ties to hold everything back in there. All right, let's go ahead and bind this to my radio. So to bind this, I've already got a model created in my radio. And that's all I'm going to do is plug this in. I'm going to hold the bind button down on the receiver, and notice it starts blinking there. So it's in bind mode. I've got my controller spectrum here. The bind button on top, I'm just going to hold the bind button, turn my controller on.
Binding. DSMX 22 milliseconds. Telemetry. Bind complete. No
So,
student signal.
oh, I had this in trainer.
Instructor has control.
So, notice the receiver is red now, or orange in color. Tuck that wire back there. Tuck that wire back there. And I don't have this real pretty yet, you guys. I'm just doing this for the video. You can make it as pretty as you want, but everything's tucked in there now. So, let's see if our control surfaces are going the right direction. Our elevator, up, down, so it's moving in appropriate direction. Our ailerons, right turn, left turn. Those are going appropriate directions. This is where you can make corrections now. See how like this aileron is up a little bit? This aileron is about perfect. No need to do anything with that one. So we will take the second here to adjust that aileron. I'm just going to grab my screwdriver. Adjust it so it's nice and flush with the top of the wing. Tighten it down, and let's take a look at that. And there we go. Both ailerons are flush, and I'm happy with that. That's looking really good. Our center of gravity here feels absolutely perfect. Might need just a little shim. When they cut the fuselage on the laser cutter, sometimes it's not very easy to get the surface cut exactly straight. So you can get just a little piece of cardboard, something real thin. You can even take like your a piece of extra Flite Test Foam, squish it down with the back of a screwdriver, make it nice and thin, and then we'll pop that in there and just use that as a little shim on this side. Oh, and that's perfect. Absolutely perfect now. Maybe a little too much, but you get the idea. Another thing that works really good is just a small thin piece of balsa. So next, let's try the throttle on this. And I've got my throttle on a throttle cut just because I use the throttle cut out when we're working with students, just so I don't inadvertently hit a throttle while I'm working with the students. Props on there the right way. I'll arm the throttle switch. And this has got all kinds of power on this 2204 motor, 2204 2300 kV motor. You can see as I give it some power here, it's definitely pushing quite a bit, and this is even a discharge battery. So this is a nice light model here, absolutely perfect. Anyway, next, go out and fly it. By the Benett, she flies real nice. We've been flying her already, so the battery's a little bit depleted, actually almost all the way depleted. I'll bring it up about half throttle here. You can see she flies real nice. Right now I'm flying it a little less than half throttle. Bring it around one more time. This is right at a little bit less than half throttle, about 40%. So here we go, we'll go up full throttle. Got enough to go vertical. We'll glide it in for a landing. This is like, I'm not even touching the sticks right now. This is just how nice it flies. Bring it on in here. Just flies super nice. Like I don't even have to do anything. I just let it go and it'll land itself.